it on. You saw me switch it on, didn't you?
I saw it.
Yeah, he saw it. Faulty equipment, you see. Cool. Meeting started. Oh, I feel worse, sir. Well, good evening, everybody. Item 1 on the agenda is apologies. Do we have any apologies?
Had no apologies, Chair.
Lovely, thank you. Interests, declarations of interest and dispensation. We generally say as and when. Yep. Item 3, minutes of the last meeting. You've all got a copy of them in your packs. So I'm sure that you've read them thoroughly. So I'm going to declare them as accurate. I've got a seconder for that. Councillor Slade, all in favour? Any abstentions? Any objections? So we haven't all voted, so have we? So you can vote because you can read them. You're just saying that the English is kind. So shall we do that again? Propose, seconder, all in favour? Abstentions? And I don't think Councillor Thompson's on this committee issue.
She's a non-voting.
No, I know. I like to say that.
What's the phrase? Non-voting.
I'm not a voting member on this committee. That's it. Any matters arising, Joe?
The only thing that isn't on the agenda, I believe, is the letter which was drafted and sent to the Duchy in regards to the weed spraying around the Nansisland estate. The letter has gone, which was approved by yourselves. We haven't had a response as of yet.
Okay, lovely. Thank you. Open session for the electors of Newquay, verbal and written. Have we got any written?
No written questions, Chair.
And we've got nobody in the gallery, so we can move swiftly on. Then item 7 is the Killicourt tenancy. Sorry, well, 6 and 7, both to do with the same thing. So if you can talk us through that, Joe.
I'll do my best, Chair. So the Killicourt Cafe agenda item was requested to be placed on the agenda by the current intendant of the cafe, and it's also the reason why Duncan was here. So the tenant wanted to have this committee's support and steering in readiness and ahead of a licence application they want to put in for the cafe. I'm afraid I was expecting the tenant to be here this evening to give a bit more context behind their application, what they intend to apply for, the hours. I don't have any of that, unfortunately, and I feel bad. Also, Duncan's here as well, and he could have advised committee as well in terms of the licence objectives and potential impact on the application might have. So having said that, I think I guess the best you could do is just give a steer as to whether you would even accept.
So my take on that as chair is that he either comes to the meeting and asks us the questions, or he gives us an in-depth of what he wants to do. We're not going to vote on something that we don't know about, to be honest, and there is plenty of time. So I don't know if everybody else. That's my proposal. Have I got a seconder for that? Councillor Morris, all in favour? Yeah.
What?
Oh, they too. So what's the 7? Sorry. God, you're really keeping me on my toes tonight, Councillor Creek. So the officer amendment, the Killicourt tenancy management update is.
So essentially, Chair, just for context, there was a previous working party which was as part of the last administration, which involved yourself and Councillor Creek. That working party, for members who are new to this administration, was essentially formed to be almost a conduit between the office and the tenants, and give the office a steer in terms of any red lines that the committee wants setting for the tenants, any policy decisions in terms of lease terms, payment terms. The working party also handled a informal interview process as part of the onboarding for new tenants. So we would do the advertising for the tenants internally, and when we would get interested parties, those applications would go to the working party for a sift to determine which business would fit in the site, the ethos of the site, and then that working party would give the office a steer, and then if that working party was happy, we would then take on past that point as the office and handle the financial checks and getting the tenants in and just the day-to-day management of. So essentially, because we're in a new administration, there is no working party, so it's really for this committee to decide, do you still want a working party, what members should go on it, what remit do you want to set for this working party, those kinds of questions really. So it's kind of open to yourselves.
So I'll just give you a little bit of context. The working party was disbanded by Councillor Hannon probably at the beginning of our last term because they maintained the Killicourt was up and running. I'd been on the previous working party, you know, establishing the... Can you stop mumbling when I'm talking, because you put me off? So I was part of the original group. There was Councillor Jones, myself and Councillor Gardner, and we did all the interviews. That was during COVID because we did them all online. Then Councillor Hannon decided, when he was chair of this committee, that it would be disbanded. I'm unsure why, but we still continued to do the interviews for the tenants on the Killicourt, which we continue to do to date. The only sort of blip was when we were in Purda, when there was an agreement that the office would look at tenants and say yes, yay or nay, or do what we normally do. So from my perspective, you know, the Killicourt is like a baby to me, and so I would like to continue, but we never called it a working party after it was disbanded. It was just Drew and I used to do the informal interviews, and that's what they were. They were informal, just us to get a feel of the people who were coming. Did they fit with what already was down there? I'm happy to continue to do that, but I'll open it to the floor. But that's my thoughts. Councillor.
Yeah, I think you've highlighted the situation quite nicely, Councillor North. I think you and I have worked really well together on this over the last few years, and I think the numbers assisted by the office speak for themselves in terms of the tenancy rates that we have now versus the tenancy rates we had maybe a couple of years ago. Ultimately, as a council, you know, that our first priority is to make sure that taxpayers' money is being spent wisely, and ensuring that those units are tenanted for as much time as possible, and paying their bills means that we aren't putting any burden on the taxpayer. Prior to that, obviously, we did have quite a lot of units either empty for periods of time or bad debts from those tenants, and I do feel that since you and I have started working on this in the last few years, and maybe it's just coincidental, but we've had less of that. Yeah. I think there's probably been some confusion between us and the office around what that delegated authority was. I can see it on the screen. I'm not sure that I recognise it. I had this conversation, I think, probably with you, Joe, but definitely with Andy. I'm not sure that I recognise that to be what we felt we'd agreed to in February in the previous administration. But I do think if you want to call it a working party, but essentially Councillor North and I continuing to do some work with interviewing some of the potential tenants. I run a couple of businesses. Margaret's got a wealth of knowledge, and I don't think we should expect that the office, who prior to having the Killicourt and Mount Wise, as a town council, we didn't have tenancies. We aren't landlords per se. I have some experience in that area, and I know Margaret does as well. And I do feel we bring a fresh perspective, and I do think the results have spoke for themselves. So whilst I'm, a strong advocate for strategic, not operational, don't micromanage the office, and I don't think this is us micromanaging the office. I think it's us giving our valid input into what tenants we think would work well in that environment. And I think if you look at the ecosystem of tenants we've got now versus what we had 3 years ago, I do think we've helped to shape that in a way that has made the Killer Court retail quarter more successful. So, sorry, that's kind of my 3 pennies worth, and I would be happy to support a motion of re-enabling that process moving forward.
It wasn't at the beginning. I think it was at year 2, because I was on that committee for a grand total of a year until it was merged with the events committee.
I have to say that's neither here nor there. All I'm talking about
I'd like to come back on it.
Is the interview process, but it never merged with the events. The events was a separate working party. Okay, thank you.
No, I was just going to say that with the experience that you two have, far more knowledge than, say, just getting around and working party, that we propose that you carry on and as the group and carry on with what you've been doing. Are we ready to propose that? Sorry, yeah.
Can I ask, are you also a port of call for tenants to come back to? So once you've done the initial interview?
So our role was mainly, so the office look after all the tenancy, so we interview the individuals who come, they tell us who they are, a little bit about themselves, we get feel for them, and then we say, yeah, I think they're a good fit. And then the office does all the work, because we are only members, we're only volunteers, so they do all that physical, legal work, because that's really not out of nothing that we sort of should be involved with. Councillor Morris, you want to come back in?
I don't know whether you heard, but I'd like to actually come on that as well.
For me, I'm not disregarding what you've just said. I feel we need to be really careful, because we've got a chap up there in the audience. When they come here, the tenants are very nervous. You definitely weren't nervous. No, but the tenants are trying to sell themselves to us. And I feel if there are too many of us, it's a little bit overbearing. So when I did it with Councillor Gardner and Jones, it generally was Councillor Gardner and I, because Councillor Jones was a teacher. We did all the interviewing during the day. So I suppose my proposal would be that it would be Councillor Creek and myself, and you could be a sub if one of us wasn't available, because I do think 3, if there's just one person sitting there selling their soul to us, because that's often what it feels like, I think 3 of us sitting on this side is a bit,
Yeah, so I tend to agree with you, and I think it's useful to have a sub should one of us not be available, and we obviously want to get these booked in and done as quickly as possible often, and if you're away or I'm away, I think it's worth having a sub. I suppose the other thing I just wanted to highlight, I don't think it's in the memo, but and again I think probably a miscommunication and maybe an management of expectations from our perspective, Councillor North, is we previously had an officer, sometimes Molly, sometimes Jacob, and others. Liberty, I think, was part. I think Joe, you've done some with us over the last few years, and I think it's useful to have an officer to deal with the kind of the legal bits and pieces. Like we did one just the other week, didn't we? And actually we weren't aware of some of the detail that had recently changed, actually. And not only that, I think it's right that an officer's there just to take a few notes on what we've talked about and what we've agreed and bits and pieces moving forward. So I think if we were talking about a working party for interviews, I think it would be the 2 councillors and an officer. I think that's right.
So I'm happy to propose that, it's myself and Councillor Creek with Councillor Morris as a sub, but that the whoever sits in with us, because we were of the understanding that when Molly or Jacob or whoever sat with us, they were making notes, and then we might say to a prospective tenant, you need to do this and this and this. And when we had the last meeting downstairs, there was a lot of issues that came up, and we found that none of that had ever been done or reported, because what we had said, a particular tenant, I won't go into the details, we're going to pay A, B and C, and then when we asked about that, they said nobody had any knowledge of it. So I'm happy to write a little process, obviously not tonight, just for whoever comes in like Molly or Jacob, to say this is what you roll, because in truth it would just mean they'd be sitting here 3 hours for us, and I'm unsure what they thought they were here for. They were here if they wanted to know about what the tenancy costs were, you know, what the service charge was, because we say we try not to get involved in that. So my proposal is that I will write a little process and hand it to yourself, Joe. Councillor Creek and I will sort of continue with the informal interviews with Councillor Morris as a sub, so I'm happy to propose Councillor, I'm going to forget your name, Trumbull, to second. All in favour? Thank you. So, yeah. So we'll go back to, obviously you missed the open session, which you're able to sort of speak, but obviously you want to ask about the putting in for a licence at the Killer Court Cafe. So we'll give you 3 minutes at well, hold on a minute. I'm going to make an executive decision, so I'm proposing that we give 3 minutes. Have I got a seconder for that? Councillor Morris, all in favour? Have you got any idea of the hours that you're going to ask for? That's the information that we would need, the hours of the licence.
Yeah, it's the same to follow our licence, our hours. It will be open at 10:30. Well, the licence starts at 10:30 and it will finish at 9:30, giving half an hour drinking up time. So we're out by 10.
And just on sales drinks?
As in off sales, yeah, off sales will be available because there will be like snippets of Cornwall, like as in the Rattler, they can buy packs and stuff like that where they can take it away as a gift. That would be something we'd like to have, like little gin packs and stuff like that, gifts. So on and off sales.
For questions, any questions from anybody? Councillor Slade?
Just why are we discussing this so much? This is licensing and planning, isn't it? It's just because
to
it's
get
Killer
a feel, but I just wanted to know what the hours were and was it going to be an off licence, which you are describing an off licence. I'll let Duncan come in and see if he's...
Well, I mean, we have a process licence for Killer Court.
total hours is 10 at night. There are plan restrictions on the cafe within their opening time. I believe that the Surrey Police licensing officer has been has fed back very positively in terms of temporary bed notices. Obviously, they're experts when it comes to issues of crime and disorder, and I thought that's probably would be the key concern. Seeing that the new regulator entertaining the licence. But you know, it's what has taken place so far, I think at the time of the whale, has been very, very positive.
Councillor.
Sorry, and you know, Duncan, I'm all for planning and licensing. Temporary event notice presumably includes a temporary alcohol licence. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Temporary event notice would enable the applicant to carry out licensable activities. Retail supply.
Right, okay. So essentially what you're saying, Sam, is that you have delivered 7 temporary events where you've been offering alcohol, and the police are suggesting that there has been no significant issues from that, and are broadly no issues. Okay, and so
It's in their eyes, it's looked at as a very well run.
very good. So essentially, I think on that basis, I'd be happy to support the request for a licence for the cafe on the hours that the tenant has outlined till 9:30.
What I will just say, we're not granting that. You've just asked us and it will go to licensing. Duncan?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, a premises licence, if it were granted, it's on the council's property, and if you said, no, you don't want to be doing that, that piece of paper is all. You are a landlord's officer. But one side issue is looking at town council's premises licence. I can see from, you may be able to enlighten me about this, but I very little to do with Kilgore, but looking at the plans is how they updated since the changes, since the Kilgore was redeveloped.
Tell me what hasn't been updated.
Can I bring the plan over?
Oh, right, sorry.
So, yeah, I mean, basically, you can see that plan, and that doesn't reflect what you have.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, someone in the office must have, I mean, this was 2016, so the office will have an up-to-date one, won't they? That wouldn't be our councillors to...
No, but in terms of clinical...
So if we, but there would have been plans, wouldn't there, from when we put the units on, and that was,
Yeah, it may be that you need to do a minor variation to update the plans, which will cost £89.
Okay. Oh, sorry, Councillor Thompson.
Hi, have you got a personal licence? Have you done that?
Yeah.
Just say if we can get on that reasonably quickly, presumably, but given we've had events this weekend and we have further events booked for the summer, who presumably that wouldn't invalidate our ability to allow alcohol on the site, would it? Or if it's out of date and in terms of the plans?
So potentially, if there was an issue, you could use a temporary event notice.
Okay.
I wouldn't say it's earth-shatteringly worrying, but I would say it does need to be addressed.
Thank you for highlighting it, Duncan.
Okay.
I don't think any of us are aware of that. That's brilliant. Thank you.
So I'll recommend that we get the office to update that plan. I have seconder, Councillor Morris, all in favour. So thank you. Thank you for that.
Good.
If you're done with me, I shall...
Oh, you're not leaving us. Oh, go on. Tear yourself away. Yeah.
If you want biscuits, I've got your all downstairs. Have a nice evening.
What are you doing?
Thanks, sir. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
good.
yeah.
Very much.
Because we're not allowed people to drink on the site.
Right.
I'll talk
That's
about
for
it after.
licensing.
Yeah, but it's our land.
Yeah. But I think in principle we're just going to.
Yeah. So we're now on to Nuki and Bloom. We're going to have the report from Councillor Thompson. And I believe today the judges were in town.
Yes, hello. Right, so the report I gave is sort of a bit out of date, really, but also attached is the portfolio that Leslie Friel created. And if it does go through all the achievements, really, that happen in Newquay over the year, and it is quite impressive, the amount of work that they do. Over the course of years. So a great team, and I think today was a successful day with the judges. Councillor Creek was there from the start up at Hendra. Do you want to just fill in that with a moment?
So I'm really pleased, and thanks to everyone that got involved from our environments team who did some great work around town, to the Cormac guys, obviously, to Nuki and Bloom themselves, and all the wonderful volunteers. So yes, I met the judges this morning at Hendra's. They had a little tour, but before that I had an opportunity for a quick cup of coffee with them, and I wanted to take that opportunity to enlighten them with our biodiversity policy, because of course, if they aren't aware of the way in which we are fighting against spraying the streets of Newquay with poison, then they may have marked us down with some of our roadside pioneers. And I have to say, they were very complimentary about the policy, and huge thanks to ex-councillor Larson for that, and we're very encouraged by some of the reports that come out over the last 12 months around the increase in biodiversity in Newquay more broadly. So really encouraging conversations, and I got to have lunch with them. Met them on the Killer Court. Killer Court looked amazing. Again, thanks to the environments team. Talked them through the wildflower project, which I think we're in the 4th year now of the wildflowers on the Killer Court. And then over lunch they grilled me on the developments of the boating lake, which we'll talk about later. So, but I do think, and there were other people there who are judges for South West in Bloom, who happen to be a part of Newquay in Bloom, and they were very encouraged by the conversations that we had, and we hope this is our 16th consecutive gold, I think, for Newquay, and I'm sure it's 16th, and hopefully maybe even a cup. So we look forward to that in the autumn. Thank you.
So great, successful day and everything, and it was lovely to see all the bloomers down at Trenant's Cottages, and thank you for them for putting on a good show for lunch and everything, and thank you to the land train as well for ferrying everyone around. Sorry. You want to say something else about the land train?
No, you're quite right. Thank you to Mark and Harry at the land train. They did a brilliant job, and I know that the judges really enjoy the spectacle of the land train, actually. Not that we would wish to sway them in one way or another, but of course they enjoy that. I think I spoke, this is probably the time to talk about it. I spoke to the RFO a few weeks ago about us paying for the land train and the lunch, which isn't ordinarily what we do. We talked about a budget. I thought it might be as much as £800. I think that's normally what it would cost. I think the land train came in at significantly less than that. I'm not sure about how much lunch came in. So I don't know whether we need to do anything about that. And then the second part of my question was, of course, this leads into then the wider South West in Bloom awards in the autumn, to which I've been invited, and I know Councillor Thompson's been invited as well. And Leslie, the chair of Bloom, asked me if we would be happy to supply them with 4 tickets I think they're £30 each. With Councillor Thompson and I, that's a total spend of 180, and I think we've probably got more than that in the original sort of budget scoping that I spoke to the RFA. So I just wanted to know whether we needed to put that through tonight or not.
Tickets are meant to be going quite quickly as well,
Yeah.
so I probably need to get a form off from Leslie to get the tickets, if that's okay with you guys.
I think a motion in regards to the tickets for South West and Bloom, I think the transport costs were covered in the previous meeting. I think you gave yourselves quite a healthy budget for that. So, but I think if you just cover the tickets for this evening, yeah.
Yeah, so propose up 6 tickets, a cost up to £200. I think they're £30 each. 4 for Bloom, 2 for the Town Council.
I think I, as chair of this committee, will write a letter with Steve to Bloom, you know, just thanking them for all their efforts, because I can go from full council as well, but I think their reports come in here, and just say to Leslie that she's welcome any time to come into the chamber and see us. Yeah, thank you.
So yeah, the report is from me this evening, members. As the Environment Manager is currently of leave of absence, so you have to forgive me, it's a very short report. So in the main body of the report, really the only thing I wanted a steer on really was the South Fistral Play Area. I think we've discussed this previously in the previous administration. So one of the pieces of equipment has been highlighted with some medium risks. They're not significantly hazardous to the people and children using it, and our maintenance operative is already looking at aspects of those findings that he can fix and repair. However, the smaller and the I'd say under 6s, under 8s, kind of smaller area, I would say it's not just that piece of equipment. There are at least 2 other pieces of equipment in that area which are low risk, but they're not in the best shape. So I didn't know if this committee had any kind of thoughts at all as whether you want me and Kieran to explore any external grant funding to do a bit of a wider piece of work. I'm separately going to source some quotes for you, just so you can at least gauge how much a like-for-like piece of, if we were to replace that piece of equipment, how much you're looking at. I've had a loose estimation from one player, a designer, of about 16,000 just for that one piece of kit. So this leads me on to, is there an exercise to look, not at the whole site, because I actually think that the space which isn't fenced off, which is newer, I'm not sure that really needs touching. I think that's pretty new, but the smaller children's area, which is used by a lot of the nurseries, I think it could benefit from a bit of TLC, a bit of an upgrade, and there's a lot of unused space down there. So I didn't want to really go any further forward with it until I got your thoughts on it, because we can keep this piece of equipment going. Can absolutely do that, but it just felt like a potential opportunity if there was funding available.
Thanks, Joe. So we obviously we're building a new play park this year at Mount Wise, as you'll be aware, and some of that money is coming from SEAL, the rest from Boardmasters. I wonder whether, if it's not urgent, actually whether we earmark some SEAL money either later in the year or certainly the next round of SEAL in, I think it comes in April, does it? Yeah. Yeah, so certainly within the next 12 months we look to replace the, the aspect. Well, actually I think we should probably look at scoping out a replacement of the under 8 section more broadly, and also start to ask the question, what do people want to see there? Do they want like for like? Do they want something different? I think I'm just starting to think about that process for the Mount Wise Park. I think what I'm really aware of is, and it may not surprise you to know that I've had lots of communications from the public about the recently refurbished Trenance Play Park, and what they felt is a lacklustre approach given what was there previously. And I don't think any of us would argue that what was there previously was fit for purpose given the conditions that it finds itself in, and it was definitely at the end of its life. But what it's been replaced with has been disappointing. So I'm just conscious that the children of Newquay feel a little bit hard done by in play park terms at the moment, and so we should probably think about replacing it in the next 12 months, but starting to think about what people want from that. And I'd probably start by talking to certainly the schools and the people that use the park there. So maybe some type of public consultation.
Just on that, I wholeheartedly agree with Councillor Creek. I think where Doorstep Green went right was it was a product of a residents' consultation, and the design was even formed and shaped around what the residents and the parents wanted. So I think if we do any play area, I think we just need to follow the same kind of methodology we did with that. I think it worked really well.
For that. So meantime, you can look at prices for different and see if there's any grants out there that Kieran might see.
Yeah, I think you finished with the playground, haven't you? Can I just add from the report to have it minuted to well done to the team for the planting for the bed outside of this building. The huge amount of effort went in, and particularly note for Matt and his plant experience and knowledge with placing of plants and purchasing of plants and raiding my home. The team came out and did a very good job. And yeah, I think next year it will look lovely. This year, I mean, it looks really good. They finished it off. It's got a good edge on it. The rope's gone down and everything, and it looks wonderful. So if we can give an official thank you for the team, and also, with what they're doing with the box, the planters and things, and with the hanging baskets, maintaining those, I think as well. I think they're doing a really good job.
Could I suggest that you do an email to them so that they get an email as well as it being in the minutes? Because I always think that's quite nice.
Yeah, can do. Yeah, of course. Maybe. That tends to come from me. That's another. I'm a go-between for Pole Wheel and us. Oh, sorry, the report. Sorry.
Yeah. So there's just a couple of updates in there. There are there are 2 quotes for tree surveys, which is the agenda item after this, which I just want to update on as well. Just for noting, Chair, yeah, the only significant thing I wanted to discuss was South Withdrawal. I don't necessarily need to vote. I just needed a steer, that's all. Yeah, so every year we are required to do annual tree surveys of our 3 woodlands. So it's not really a woodland, but we've got a small area down by the Gannel. It's just a handful of trees, just a number of trees along a footpath. Thank you, Councillor Thompson. And we have Prairie Woods, of course, and we have the area behind the skate park now, as we've got that land under license from Cornwall Council, because we needed that in order to facilitate the extension of the park. So there's 2 quotes for your consideration. Did try to get a third, but in shortness of time I wasn't able to. So I have a recommendation to go with Glendale to undertake the tree surveys and also give me and the Environment Manager delegated authority to spend up to the budget in those respective budget lines to undertake any works as arising from those surveys.
I was a bit confused. You've got Concrete Waves, Gannell, Priory Woods, and then you've got a total of 4,979, and it's not, if it's the total of those figures, it's totally wrong. Can you see that? How do you get those to under 5,000 and the top one's 9?
Oh, sorry. The RFO has updated some of my budgets, and I didn't update the total. So
That's fine. It's just when I saw that, I thought it doesn't bear any resemblance to what should be there.
So just for context, those are just the ignore the total for 979.
Okay.
The totals are the amount you have in each respective budget. So, as an example, 2,600 in your Gannell grounds maintenance budget, but the quote is £742.50 for all 3 sites.
So should we do all 3? Any questions for Councillor Creek?
Yeah, it's just a budgeting question. Are these budget lines or are they EMRs?
Budget lines.
So this is for this year's budget. These aren't okay. And presumably you're not expecting to spend £9,110 on Concrete Waves, but you're asking for delegated authority to spend up to that.
Yeah, to spend within that budget. So
Okay.
We won't know until the tree surveys are done what
Okay.
works are going to be recommended. Priory Wood tends to be the worst offender because there's a lot of ash dieback in those woods. So they tend to be the ones where you're likely to have more works needed. Concrete Waves, I don't know. So I think rather than coming back to committee and asking for a further £500, £600 to do tree works, it just seems logical to have delegated authority to spend within the budget to do any works coming out of those surveys.
Yeah, I mean, with Priory Woods, we've had the invitation by the Forestry and DEFRA to put in for the grants and things that will come about. So hopefully then in the future, then Priory Woods, we've got a felling licence and things that a lot of that expenditure will get grant money for, and tree replacement and all that sort of thing. So hopefully that will start evening itself out in the future. That's what we're reckoning.
Sorry, it's a tree-related question. It might have come up recently and it may be nothing to do with us, but the tree that fell by the viaduct, so a couple of weeks ago and fell into the road, yeah. Has that already, whose tree was that? Yeah, so that was discussed in a previous meeting and just, so they survey those trees.
It wouldn't be discussed here because it's not our asset. So you would hope they do their own tree surveys and would have known that that was a bit dodgy, but...
Yeah. That's basically it. We just have to hope that they've done what they meant to do and it's a bit dodgy because that was extremely dodgy.
Yeah, they do have tree officers at Cornwall Council.
Yeah. They just missed that one, did they?
They're supposed to do these things.
Okay. Only because we're on the subject of trees.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Oh, sorry. Yes, so since the last meeting then, been up and took Councillor Hubbox up to meet Tristan up at Polwheel, which was a lovely successful meeting with Tristan, and hopefully moving forward and negotiating with Joe about a regular weekly visit up there, which I think you took the team up, I think, haven't you? And so hopefully there's a weekly maintenance thing of trying to get to grips with strimming up there. It's quite overgrown, and yeah, I don't. Abby, do you want to say anything about your visit to Polwheal?
Just that it's such a wonderful place. And I think that if, as a council, we can, I feel deeply it's our responsibility to do what we can to make the most of that and encourage the community to make the most of it. Because it's an amazing thing to have. Yeah, that community growing space is just such a privilege to have that in our possession, and I really think we should do everything we can to make the most of it and allow people to connect with it and join the team that Tristan's worked so hard to keep going up there despite all the odds. I really feel that's our responsibility to do what we can, because it's wicked.
So, yeah, Tristan's sort of, I think, getting his mojo back. And it dawned on me when I was looking through the grants available for Priory Wood that we're going to be ticking the boxes for, that we might apply for, that there's no reason why we can't actually get higher tier payments and register Polwheal through DEFRA as well. I don't think. There isn't a minimum land size. We've already got a registration number as Newquay Town Council, so we'd need to register that land, and it covers 100% educational access capital cost. It would then cover a classroom with facilities and everything 100%. So I thought, so hopefully I'm going to have a meeting with Andy and Anne and sort of like see if that's the way to go, check that I haven't misread something somewhere. But I think that's definitely a way forward, that we could then put that Polwheal in for higher tier payments as well. So fingers crossed, really.
So do we have to do anything with that, Joe?
Not at this stage, just to reiterate in my report, I met with Terry. Tristan wasn't available, and the team, so I just we kind of had a chat about the maintenance of the site. One of the team members is going to be going up every week. Terry kind of highlighted the areas that she wanted to kind of have focused on. It's mainly the berry rows and strimming around there so they can actually get in. There's a tree limb which James is going to look at as well, which is hanging over one of the neighbours' properties. So there's a few bits and pieces that on Tristan's wish list, which we kind of ironed out there, and I've also put them in touch with the boundary surveyor, which we've commissioned, so they can liaise with each other about arranging a site meeting. And I've already met him up there, but ideally I want them up there to give their side of things before we approach Luxon. So it's we're tackling as many things as
yeah. I think because I mean the developer has done a land grab up there, and they're expecting more land as well to put the safety fencing up, which 2 meters as well onto our property. That is actually quite a strip that's going to have to be taken out because of this 5-6 meter drop that they've got on the other side. It is incredible that they've done that, and so the Newquay Town Council should be getting compensation for that. So yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson.
That's in progress.
Yeah. It's not actually going to be asking for any money this time out.
We can breathe.
Until next month. Yeah, obviously the new doors up at Esplanade. Fixed electrical testing that was agreed last time is going to be done the first week of September. He's going to get back to me with a more precise date because it's obviously going to be done out of hours. Bifold doors on the bandstand have been properly repaired. They're not perfect, but in order to get them perfect, they're going to have to basically dig out the runner, and that's not something we want to do obviously before the food festival and before it's going to be getting most of its use. Yes, APS have made a start on the manhole down at Little Fistral today, so that toilet block will be open in time for the peak season. They've actually coupled that in with doing the partition wall at Watergate. Not sure if they got down there this afternoon, so they were pretty deep in the little fistule earlier, so, but hopefully by the end of tomorrow, the partition and the manhole will be done. And the mural's set for 28th to the 30th of July. It is weather dependent, but they've said they have got quite a lot of flexibility that week, so if it is pushed back for a day or two, then it will be done that week. I think that's about it.
Just ask about the individual that's blocking the toilets at the station. Do we know who that individual is?
No, it's a man in a black hoodie who occasionally walks on crutches, but most of the time just swings them around. When it's been reported, I've gone down there, he's not there, and then by the time someone goes, he tends to go back in there. There's been rocks in the toilets, there's been handfuls, and I mean, no mess if you like, just literally just pulling all the toilet roll out and just putting it down the toilet, flushing it, and at one point even stuffing tissue into the sink and jamming one of the taps on. Luckily, the overflow kept on top of it, and Di actually managed to unblock it.
Okay. So perhaps we should do something on our website, you know, on our Facebook page or Newquay Town Council, to say that, you know, the damage that, you know, is happening down there and the cost, because it's the cost to the taxpayer. It's not a cost to me. It's the cost to Newquay Town Council, but ultimately the taxpayers. Are we able to get the portable camera down there?
It is down there, and every time we've tried to locate this individual, it's never picked it up. So yeah, it's quite elusive.
Thank you, Chair. So huge thank you, Richard, for the work that you're doing, and a huge thanks to the facilities team. I did bump into one of them yesterday, and he was telling me all about this particular individual. Frustrating that we don't seem to be able to catch him on the CCTV. But is there anything that you need from us to be able to enable that CCTV to be moved or anything like that? And then before I finish, thank you, and I'm really pleased to hear that the mural will be done in time for Boardmasters and the many thousands of people that will be expecting through those that train station and through those toilets on that weekend. So you're mumbling again, Councillor Morris. I thought the chair asked you not to do that.
Councillor Morris, don't keep talking when councillors are talking, because one, you do distract somebody and you can lose your train of thought. So
no, that was it. Thank you. Appreciate everything you do. Thank you.
There's only two things. One you brought up about the camera. Second one is, I don't know if you're aware, but there is actually no Wi-Fi signal in Watergate. Just to let you know, we can get nothing down there with our portable ones, because we go in there with our machines. We can't take a card payment done in Watergate. So I'm just saying that might be another issue that you encounter at Watergate.
In respect of CCTV or the contactless?
In respect of your contactless payments at Watergate.
Yeah, I mean, I've already discussed with the contractor. So Watergate Bay will be set up on a deferred payments system. So essentially, it doesn't transmit the data to NIACS every time. It will still require a card to access, but the data's pulled and then it sends it at the end of a business day. So that's what we use for those sorts of more remote sites.
you can't borrow it, Councillor Morris.
Do we know what happened to the bifold doors at the bandstand? Why were they broken? Sorry.
Sadly, it's the location. There was a lot of salt, a lot of sand. I think potentially it's because they're mainly used through the sort of summer season, and then obviously being closed for months at a time without getting used, they just got corroded. The runners broke, the wheels were dodgy, and I wouldn't say forcing them, but in having to sort of lump them around, it has slightly damaged the track that runs along the bottom. But being concreted in and then having the composite decking on the front, that's just something we haven't even thought about tackling, especially with obviously it being used through the summer. So potentially something that we can look at through the winter, but they're working well, and now one person can open the doors, where previously it was at least a two-person job. So
that's cool. I wasn't sure.
Yeah, as far as I'm aware, it was just a combination of the sea air and rust and sand, the usual fun.
I just get an update on where we are with the advert that we were going to put up, the application to put the advert on at Watergate.
Yeah, so I've, as you can appreciate, I've been a little bit preoccupied with covering other staff. So I have been back and forth looking into it. The business initially expressed an interest. I immediately fed back to them after that meeting, and I haven't heard back since from them as to reaffirming their interest. So I think they're at a point now where they're in their busiest season. So they may want to come back to me after the season's over. But I've also been back and forth battling Cornwall Council to determine if I need planning permission or not and advertising consent, which seemingly we do. So there will be an additional cost to that, and I believe it's a cost per frame. I think it's about 160 odd pounds per frame. So I think we need to really look at what interest there might be and whether we can make it viable. So it's not dropped off my radar, but the initial business that expressed interest hasn't come back to me. So unfortunately, it's been slightly on the back burner, but we'll pick it up.
A couple of things, coming on the back of that, I discussed with Richard earlier today about internal advertising on the backs of doors like you get at service stations. That, of course, wouldn't need it wouldn't need planning at all. So that could be a way forward inside the building. And I was pleased to note that you got rid of the overhead tanks at Chester Road, so we don't need Legionnaire testing, which is an expensive test to do. So that saved money. Do we have overhead tanks in any of the other toilets? Is it the case you're gradually working round, or was that just a once-off?
I think that was historic, because it was quite an old set of toilets. As for header tanks, off the top of my head, I'm afraid I couldn't tell you. Potentially Little Fistral, because I know that's got a sort of like a ceiling void. The rest, I'm afraid, I'm not entirely sure.
So, I mean, if they can be checked, that'd be something I would think to do with the other toilets as well, if there are overhead tanks on, because, as I say, it is an expensive test that needs to be done annually. That if we can avoid doing that by plugging it straight into the mains, that'd be great.
Yeah, obviously a lot of them will need to be tested anyway, regardless of what they're on, but I think that one was flagged up mainly because of the sediment that was in the tank. So generally a report would take photos of the tanks, whether they needed cleaning or not, and that's the only one that was flagged up as having sediment in it. But yeah, if there are any more, then obviously they can be put direct onto mains.
So do we have signs in that it's not drinking water in the toilets? Because if water is coming through overhead tanks, then it shouldn't be drinking water.
Yeah, the vast majority of them are wall gates.
So they'll be direct.
Yeah, with the soap dispensers and the hand dryers all in one. Those.
Okay, yeah. So it wouldn't be drinking water anyway. Okay.
I know there's some taps in the train station toilets, but there's no header tanks there, so that would be direct off mains.
Okay.
So very quick one as well. We had two of our members of staff in that team trained to do Legionella testing. So ideally, the kind of medium term is to start shifting away from using a contractor and using our staff to bring some of those costs down as well.
I think I would say I hope we put it into their job description. Report, Richard.
The only update, I believe, I mean, Councillor Slade, and you're keen to jump in, so I'll leave you to go in first.
Yeah, this is just to update. This is a sort of hang on from the last administration. This is like a little bugbear of mine because it's on the back of the publication of the book, The Salt Path, and then the film coming out. Is that we don't make enough. I don't think Newquay makes enough of the fact that we're a key part of the South West Coast Path, and there's quite a lot of people that when they're doing the path, Newquay should be, or it is, or if not, should be a place where they stop at one point, right? And I just think I've seen anecdotally. I mean, where I live, where my place is, it's on the corner, and the amount of people that just stop and they're lost, and they're looking around, and all they've got is just some little sticker of an acorn on a lamppost that's normally surrounded by other stickers. So I kind of brought up the idea that perhaps we could look at our own more visible signage, if we could put it at key points along the path through Newquay where there's junctions where people tend to drift. And also we could just highlight the fact that we're probably one of the best parts of the South West Coast Path. But where we went, there was something to do with the Duchy, was there, or something? I'm trying to remember where we were.
So the whole coast path is getting completely reviewed, and it's going to be the King's Path, essentially. So it's all being merged, put together. And when I met with the South West Coast Path rep, they were in a bit of a flux, to be honest. So they have reviewed Newquay. They're looking to try and secure funding. The last update I had from her was they were looking to get some new signage for Newquay by the end of March. I chased her again a couple of times. I haven't had an update since. So I think the only thing I can do is keep chasing my contacts, see if we can get her down again, just if there are still just discrepancies since the signage, because there were, when we met her, we did walk the route through Newquay, and there were multiple, not even just that example, but there were multiple kind of locations where it just didn't make sense. And there was even the bid boards, there was discrepancies there, so they didn't necessarily match up with what the South West Coast Path maps were showing. So it didn't sound particularly brilliant. They're operating on at least 2 different maps internally as well. They've got the Ordnance Survey map, they've got this new King's Coast Path map, and another map, and it just seemed a little bit of a nightmare for them. So the only thing I can suggest is chasing her up again and see if we can get them down and chat some of this through.
I'd be interested if we can get them down. And the other thing is whether or not we could look at producing our own, or if we're allowed, if the King would allow it, or if we're allowed to. If that's an option, if they're just going to go for updating their acorn stickers, whether or not we'd be interested in looking at that, perhaps, like with schools or something, perhaps. I don't know.
We did broach that at the time. They seemed a little bit resistant to bespoke signage. They seem to be more wanting to work in partnership to identify locations where they would put signage, not necessarily us putting in our own signage, because they've got, obviously quite a lot of counties to work with, and if people start putting in their own signs, and that's the only message I can relay, is they weren't 100% on board with that idea, but they definitely were on board with improving the wayfinding, 100%.
When they do come, if we could perhaps meet with them as well, because they could they've done some lovely wayfinder ones up there on Pentire Crescent, so if they can have them up there, why can't we have them in town? Those lovely wooden ones? I feel the names are burnt out.
Thank you. I, as mayor, I'd be quite happy to write to them to kind of put some expediency behind.
I'll propose that now.
The idea that we get the South West Coast Path a bit more promoted in Newquay, given the buzz. So happy to do that. If that adds any weight, Joe. The other thing, just on the Coast Path, while we're talking about it, one of our fellow councillors provided me with a quote from, and unfortunately, I'm not sure which version of the book it is, but one would hope it's not the latest, and we should probably write to the publishers of the Trailblazer Cornwall Coast Path, South West Coast Path Part 2 book, because it reads, and I shall read from it, Newquay. Newquay is the surf capital of Cornwall, and the major UK competitions are held on Fistral Beach. Not surprisingly, therefore, there are numerous shops selling surfing equipment and gear. The town has also become a favourite venue for stag and hen parties, to the dismay of many. If a night out on the streets filled with practically paralytic 20-somethings doesn't sound like your cup of tea, then consider other options either before or after Newquay. Now, I don't know about you, I was genuinely quite offended by that. And so I wonder whether you'd be okay if we wrote to the publishers of said book and just highlight the great work that that Duncan was alluding to earlier on, actually, and the the town council has done, the police, Newquay Safe, and others, to ask them to urgently, well, firstly visit Newquay and see that it isn't as they've described, and update their description of our wonderful town. And I note that it also mentions about many banks that still don't exist here anymore, and other bits and pieces. So I think it just needs a refresh and an update. And I just felt genuinely offended by that, to be honest. So yeah. So maybe whether
are you writing?
I'm happy to write if you're happy for me to do so, maybe we just make a resolution along those lines, just so that we've got it on the record.
But we need to, on the letter, that we want a response. We want to know what they're going to do and how they're going to.
Where they got their information. To be honest, they haven't visited. Propose that the mayor's going to write to the southwest coast path and the King's people, and also to this book that you've. So if I have a seconder for that. Councillor Slade. Councillor Morris, you want to say something?
I had my hand up ages before Councillor Slade, but I'm happy to defer to.
Okay.
Yeah, I wouldn't keep mentioning the salt path. It's very much fallen out of favour. I didn't know if you know that, Councillor Slade.
The film's still out, though.
Yes, and that's sort of all dubious as well. So I wouldn't. People are not going to be we'll be boycotting the salt path, I imagine. Yeah.
And in truth, how she portrayed Newquay in that film was terrible. No, absolutely not. Ensure that the people of Newquay know it's not our asset, it belongs to Cornwall Council. Oh, go on, you.
Yeah. So I'm sure we're all aware that this is almost like an annual event, and it's. I mean, the reasons are because there's just nutrients going into the lake, which is basically just like a big puddle, and so as soon as the sun shines, the nutrients. You get algal blooms because there's no oxygen in it, there's no proper decent ecosystem set up in it at all. And the old expensive policies were like Cornwall Council would just dredge it out at a huge expense, or they would open the sluice gates from high tide at the Gannel, which would just bring salt water into it, so it would kill everything in there, it would kill the algae, but it would kill any of the plants or animals that would help to set up an ecosystem that would control it naturally. So I believe that Councillor Creek will probably say of his activities on Cornwall Council, but I think it'd be good if we could work with Cornwall Council, with other partners, and try and formulate a system where we can get some expert opinion into the potential of rewilding to a certain degree the boating lake. Obviously, we'd have to involve all the partners that use it, the boat hire and people like that, but it seems to me that every year the place just ends up like a horrible green gunge, and the actual solution, which would be the natural way of doing it, is something that's never looked at. So I think if we could facilitate some kind of network where we can talk to all the people who would be involved and try and take it forward, or steer it forward, so that we don't have to deal with ugly algal blooms. And obviously, if we rewild it to a certain degree, we're ticking our biodiversity increases a great deal. I mean, a wetland habitat is just a massive asset to all kinds of wildlife. So, you know, the fact it's just sitting there and it's just a big puddle is disappointing. I think it would fit with our policies.
Councillor Creek.
Yeah, thank you. As you can probably imagine, I've been talking about the boating lake a lot in the last few weeks. And so firstly, I want to say that one of the first things I did when I got elected to Cornwall Council was called a meeting with the officer at Cormac, the environment officer at Cornwall Council, and the local link officer to talk about the boating lake. This was back in May, pre-algal bloom. And we talked about the options then. You'll remember from a few years ago, previous Councillor Monk had come to the table with 3 potential options, I think. One was dredging it at quite an expensive sum of money. One was building or digging a channel along the side of the boating lake, because it was felt that the silt would build up in the channel as opposed to the lake, and that would be easier to clear. I seem to remember that was the way. And then the third, which was, I think at the time, largely dismissed, was the option of a more natural rewilding of aspects of the lake. So the first 2 options proved to be extremely expensive, and from what I can work out, the consultation and bits and pieces were largely abandoned on that basis. So I was really clear with officers that I wanted a really, sustainable approach, and one that, didn't mean that we were spending tens of thousands of pounds a year trying to maintain something that is very unnatural in its essence. Of course, recognising the historical importance of the boating lake, the fact that it was dug out by hand, and by, I think it was people between the First and Second World War, wasn't it? Unemployed people of the town, paid in tobacco and pasties every day to hand dig out this boating lake. And, there's some brilliant imagery at Newquay Museum of it, so, pop along and see Len if you're interested. Essentially, everyone seemed to come back with the same solution, which was that the problem is that we've got the process of eutrophication, which is essentially a shallow body of water with very little oxygen, as Councillor Slade describes, lots of nutrients going in, both from surface runoff, but of course the streams that feed the boating lake go as far out as Nansledden actually, and potentially Prow Park. So you've got nutrients from those building projects, and of course it runs through the zoo, and of course there's animal food, animal feces, lots of phosphates that ended up in the water, and of course this is creating these high nutrient levels in the water that and there's nothing there to process these nutrients. So essentially what we are proposing is that and what I'll be going back to the officers to try and implement is a managed rewilding of the soft and wooden banks sort of on the opposite side to the boating hire place, reeds or the like, and those will help to process the nutrients, will help to oxygenate the water and clarify the water. They will also have a secondary benefit of actually creating habitats for biodiversity and also shelter for ducklings. You'll be aware of the much noise around duckling murdering on the lake by the swans. Again, a very natural part of nature, but I appreciate it's quite a traumatic thing to watch, and it will create kind of habitats and bits and pieces to avoid that. We're also proposing some managed rewilding of the areas slightly further up the lake between the bridges, so that we kind of capture and try and process those nutrients as they're coming downstream. This isn't to say that this is a quick fix. It won't happen and won't make any difference to the algal bloom that we've got here, but I'm very keen to make sure that we put in longer term fixes, and so it will make it better next year and the following year and the following year, and it will just get better and better the more reeds grow there, obviously. And I think we'll create a really nice landscape actually. So that's the plan. I think Cornwall Council, unlike most things every other question I've asked them in the last couple of months is there's no budget. When I asked them about this, they seem to indicate that there was some budget. So my hope is that they will allow me to use the budget on the reeds, and I'm working with Nuki Marine Group to do some water testing of the lake, and the aquarium are also getting involved in terms of the water quality testing, which is really good. And the Marine Group are going to work with their experts to understand what the best type of reeds would be in that area. And then my hope is that we use the money to buy the reeds, and then we have a community day. Clearly, the community is very energised by what's going on at the Boating Lake at the moment, so I'm hoping that they will be equally as energised about the solution. And my proposal is that we attempt a community planting day later in the year, working with partners at the Town Council, at Nuki Marine Group, at the local schools, and others, Nuki and Bloom, for example, and that we all get our wellies on, and we do some planting of the Boating Lake. We do some education with the children, and all have a thoroughly good time improving what is a bit of a mess at the moment. I do appreciate. So that's the update that I've got. So I welcome your call for partnership working in that way, Councillor Slade, and I'd be happy to work with the committee to develop that further. Conscious that we don't have a meeting till October, and I was kind of hoping that we might be able to achieve this in the autumn. So I hope members will be happy if we do that via email, if it does appear that we want to do it before the next meeting. And the other thing, two things I just wanted to say very quickly is public meeting. So I get lots of questions about this. Is why don't you dredge the lake? That will solve the problem. You're right, it would solve the problem. It would kill the fish, it would kill the leeches, and it would kill the terrapins, and it would kill the significant number of eels that we have in the Boating Lake, and essentially destroy their habitat. So that's why we're not doing that. And why aren't you opening the sluice gate and allowing the brackish water in? That would kill the weeds. Absolutely it would, but for the same reasons I've just described about the biodiversity in the lake, but also the Environment Agency have been clear with Cornwall Council that they would not be happy with us opening the sluice gates and allowing the water and the weeds from the Boating Lake into the Gannel. So that's why we're not doing that. But I just thought those are the two things that I keep getting challenged on, so I thought I'd highlight.
Thank you for that update. Councillor.
Yeah, can I just accentuate the importance then for wildlife? So over the last few years, there's been reports of glossy ibis coming in. So glossy ibis would be more current, you'd see them more in sort of Spain and things. So with climate change, then the birds are becoming more prevalent, and they're coming into roost at the Boating Lake on occasion. So that the rebirds will be an ideal environment for them. And of course, for the twitchers amongst us, having those sort of like birds coming in, it extends then the business, and for those around the Boating Lake for going and getting and such things. So improving the bird life and variety of that, I think is a great opportunity and a diversification then for businesses in the area. Last year we had a female long-tailed duck which was there, which is quite popular with twitchers amongst us. Yeah, I'll be quiet now.
I'd just like to say I think how proud of yourselves as movers and shakers. I just think it's amazing that this is a committee and a council that's choosing the long-term natural solution rather than continually spending money on an unsustainable answer. And I just think that you should be really proud of yourselves, because I think it's rad. That's all.
I thought, it's because of the very many abusive messages that I've had over the last couple of weeks about it. You would not believe how rude people are. No, so I think what I'll do is, okay, I'm waiting to hear back from our partners at Nuki Key Marine Group on the detail. I need to go back and get an idea of money from Cornwall Council, because that will dictate how much of this stuff we can actually put in the boating lake. There will be some risk assessments and bits and pieces to do. We need to kind of work out who does that. I'm hoping that we can get our guys at Cornwall Council to do that. So I would suggest it's a watch and wait, and then let's, you know, as soon as I've got more detail, because this is just obviously the emerging plan, then I'll email you all, and if needs be, we can do some stuff by email. But essentially, I'm hoping that there will be enough money there. Otherwise, I guess there's an opportunity for the town council to decide whether they want to contribute anything to sort of putting more of this kind of vegetation into the boating lake, or not, and what the benefits of that might be. So that's probably a committee meeting decision if that's needed. But yeah, so at the minute it's just a watch and wait, and I will update you all as soon as I have any more information.
No correspondence, Chair.
Disappointment that the Duchy hasn't written back. Do we chase them? Say, did you get our email? Because it's quite important, because obviously we've got our biodiversity policy, and we're trying to drive forward a glyphosate-free town, and then a large suburb of it is not really. It's dragging the reputation of the town down and dragging us down. So it would be nice if they at least acknowledged the receipt of it, and perhaps it'd be good to see what they say.
They acknowledge receipt. Did they forward it on to Sam? Yeah, they forwarded it on to the same individual, I believe, who's meeting some councillors in regards to signage. So we can chase them for a more
could be
tangible response.
Yes, so if there's councillors who are meeting this Sam, did you say, to talk about signage, perhaps they could raise that with him.
I believe I'm meeting them tomorrow alongside Councillors Wright, Williamson, and a number of others. So happy to raise that. Is that not happening now? I'm on holiday then. Oh, that's dreadful. Okay. All right. No, I mean, it's fine, because Councillor Wright, Councillor Williamson are on it. I think Councillor Jacobs, Councillor Taylor, Motter, Martin, and basically it's the whole of C&T and me.
Ask them to.
I'd happily send the Deputy Mayor in my place, though.
Yeah.
Oh, there we go. Fantastic.
Just a quick one. It kind of straddles between CCTV and Newquay Bid. So it's essentially Shopwatch, which is kind of overseen by Bid. I'm not entirely sure if they pay for it. I believe they do. But the radio system, which most of the businesses and pubs use in town to communicate with each other and also communicate with CCTV, went down last week. They were trying to find an alternative location for the antenna and the equipment which it operates from. It used to be located on the Hotel Victoria. They had an arrangement with the Hotel Victoria that they would keep it there and they would keep it running. That then abruptly terminated. We're not entirely sure why. Mark from Bid was looking for alternative locations. He found an alternative at Newquay Football Club, but I believe it's not at its 100% capacity. So internally, I've been looking at some of our sites here and as well as Mount Wise, speaking with Gould, who are the engineers that essentially manage it for Bid. They do seem to think Mount Wise might be a good location to relocate the antenna. So I'm currently in back and forth with them. However, I just wanted to get an in principle kind of idea from this committee if would you be supportive of relocating the antenna to Mount Wise, subject to obviously bid, or whoever funds Shopwatch, funding and facilitating that. So essentially funding the install, funding ongoing maintenance. We would literally just be the building that they attach the antenna to. And I feel like it'd probably be a more stable solution for them at the moment, because I'm not sure if the football club is necessarily the best location for them. It's a very critical system for the businesses. It's a critical system for CCTV. And I just think it'd be worth exploring that site, but I didn't really want to progress with it unless I had this committee's kind of steer.
Can I just ask, if they put an antenna on our building, do we charge them for that?
So the only real cost would be the cost of electricity, which I've already confirmed they would contribute or make a contribution towards. I think it's nominal. I think they looks about £60 a month, I think, for electric. But I would expect them, if this was going to be an arrangement which we had with them, that they would essentially cover the cost of maintenance, electric, and install. And we are just essentially providing the building that, essentially providing the wall for them to stick the bracket on.
They would pay electricity ongoing, but we'd have that in writing. Yeah, it's a bit like having a cable coming through your garden. It's a charge.
It's almost like a reverse arrangement that we have for our CCTV cameras. So we have CCTV cameras on businesses. We have a way leave agreement with those businesses where we're responsible for the maintenance of the bracket, and if that bracket falls off, we're liable. There's no cost to that business. So it's essentially the reverse of that. So we potentially have an agreement which we could reverse to suit that. So I just wanted to kind of float it here.
I will make it. Yeah, I'll change. I have my garden group between 1 and 2:30, but I will juggle.
Just to say thank you, Joe, and probably Richard, for getting the Porth water fountain signage up. The comms officer and I went down the other day and did a little video, which I expect at some point will appear on social media. They're really pleased with it. Actually, it looks great site, and thanks to it was Sarah from Radio Newquay who originally collared me for this about a year ago, probably. So thanks to her that we've got it down there, and I understand that we've got further sites potentially in the mix as well, which will only be a great thing, because these things save lots and lots of plastic bottles entering our waste system and the ocean indeed. So well done, thank you.
Sorry, memory loss, right. So with my cap hat on, then, oh, that's a good pun actually, isn't it? Sorry. We're going to be working with Porth Residents Association and the Cornwall Community Flood Prevention sort of like group, and developing a flood plan with the residents and the businesses of Porth in the future. We're putting that off, but including the Newquay Town Council, because the toilets there are going to be, potentially prone to flooding. And I've spoken to Richard today about this, so including Richard then within this, and thinking about ways of making the toilets there and at Trenance Boating Lake sort of like flood-proof and things in the future, and training that Richard might be able to partake in within that. So we're putting it off till September, but I have been in communication with Philippa Mitchell and Jean, and Philippa's going to be getting a list of contacts and things, and working with Emma Newbury then with the flood forum. So yeah.
Just a couple. Update on Dorset Green. Any news on that? Has that been finished yet?
Yeah, it wasn't.
Sorry, I missed it.
Yeah, it's in progress. I met with the rep from Wicksteed, who are the manufacturer, this week. I think my memory escapes me, but yeah, it's in progress. They're looking at hopefully this month for that repair to be done.
Okay, sorry about that. I missed it. The second one is we've got lots of weeds hanging around Porth Four Turns. I don't know if they're ours or whether they are Cornwall Council to deal with, but it's right on the roundabout on the against the railings.
That would be Councillor Kevin Tow. What I would suggest is if you feel that the roadside pioneers are causing a safety issue, then I would definitely report it via the report it link on Cornwall Council's website. If they're on the road or where the road meets the curb, or indeed on the path there, they're definitely not the responsibility of Newquay Town Council, and Cornwall Council will remove them if there is a safety issue.
Sarah's mention of the Cornwall Community Flood Forum reminds Jill and I that we went to a Cornwall Community Flood Forum meeting at Trelance Cottages, and I've just checked my emails, and I think maybe it stopped with Joe A. So maybe I can catch up with you about what we learn and making a flood plan for that area too.
Yes, it's been working then with the GANL, so we want to coordinate. They want to coordinate then with the GANL with Porth. It's just that the main impact is with businesses at Porth, and we're coming up to peak season, so we just felt it was going to be too busy, and it's to do with the lane as well and the access and things. But I've forgotten what it's called. The new pizza place down on Porth. Ansom's have had flooding issues in the past, so it is prone down there, so very much an issue, but including Richard then with the public toilets as well. But yeah, they're hoping to coordinate it all and also create a Newquay Town Council emergency plan in with that as well, and get it all coordinated together. So yeah. Yeah, we're not working with Porth until I've got people to remind me at the end of August, and then start looking at it in September, and yeah, coordinating between the two.
So last but not least, I have actually, Councillor Stade, I sent an email to Joe. I didn't send it to everybody else because I can share it later, about the vessels down in the boatyard. There was something on Facebook about them being removed. Well, I recently went to a marine conservation sort of meeting, and there's a company, I have printed off their letter, it's called cleanocean@gmail.com, and they call their name is Wreck Free Fowl and Helford, and it's all to do with about the Helford, and they actually issue a letter and they put it on the boats that are there, and then within 30 days. So I did send it to Joe. I mean, it's, you know, we could probably copy it in some way, but I just thought it was interesting, particularly when I saw that on Facebook. I would have shared it anyway tonight, so yeah. Do it all again.